Got it. Okay. Um, Mixed bag of results this week. I was able to get all the PID stuff working as far as I want to get before I start incorporating ROS. Started loading ROS onto my Ubuntu. Was on the Reddit for Milwaukee site and was reading some stuff about batteries and how bad it is to let them get down below 18 or between a certain down below a certain voltage. So I decided, well, since I'm still working with the Itsy-Bitsy, why don't I go ahead and add a pair of voltage dividers so I can at least check what the voltage is on each of the two batteries that I'm going to be having, because I'm going to have one for that I'll convert down to 5 volts and another one that I'm going to have at the full, whatever the full voltage is. Well, somehow I ended up blowing up my Itsy by connecting it incorrectly. And I couldn't find the other one that I thought I had, and I know I'd given 2 to my cousin. So I ordered 2 and they came late yesterday, so I haven't done anything with those. But I'm going to redo the voltage divider and before I hook it up to the Itsy and make sure that the voltage that I'm wanting to check isn't above the 3.3 volts. I should probably have gotten some 3.3 volt Schlossky's diodes just to ensure that the voltage isn't above what it should be. But then while I was waiting on the Itsy-Bitsy's to come, I decided I wanted to start laying out what the power distribution circuit's going to be and so forth. Trying to incorporate what I had from my previous incarnation of this test robot with the fuses and the switches and the barrier strips. And so I had to download the new version of Eagle because I was like at version 5 and it's now version 9 or something. So that was fun. And then I discovered that a lot of the stuff that I was looking for, I couldn't find libraries for. So like I've got a 6-bank fuse block. So I had to learn how to create the components in the library. I created one for my global motor with encoder. I created one for the barrier strip. Or 2 barrier strips. I created one for the fuse block. And I couldn't find what I was wanting for the Itsy-Bitsy. So I just wanted a component for the Itsy-Bitsy. I didn't want to see what that whole board was. And so I did that and got it all wired up and got the Raspberry Pi on there because that's what I'll be using serial communication between the Itsy and the Pi. I've not done any testing with that, so that I figure I'll have that ROS serial node running on the Itsy or on the Raspberry to be able to communicate to the what I'm calling my motor controller / voltage checker. I will not be getting anything done between now and the next meeting because I'm not going to be here. So it was fun working with the Eagle again. And I think I'm going to start wiring up so I don't just have boards and all kinds of stuff just laying around on the robot. So I can get that done.
So
are you
using Eagle just to create basically a schematic or wiring diagram?
Yeah.
Something else you might look into is Fritzing, and that's something where they plop down blocks and draw wires between things. But I think no matter what you use, you're going to have the problem that, yes, you're going to make new components because no matter what you get, it's not going to have everything that you already have. So
yeah, I've never heard of that.
that's the thing that you look at all the tutorials on Arduino and everything. It says, oh, it shows you, here's a picture of a breadboard, and it shows a little wire
Okay.
up to it. And I'll look it up and post it here.
Okay.
Go on.
I have there, a guy has been doing a lot of investigation and reverse engineering of a battery pack that I'm using, and he's determined that it doesn't use I2C for communications. It uses 2000 baud serial, and he's mapped out the messages that go back and forth between the battery and a charger. Doesn't know what they mean yet, but he has been able to verify it's 2000 baud, what those messages are, that there is a checksum at the end, so he knows that he's getting the full message. And he's made great progress. So next he's going to try and hook it up to the battery up to his drill and see what signals he gets or what messages. So we're getting closer on that. That may have to take another processor to get the to be able to communicate with the two batteries. But that I think would be fun. So I would know exactly what the voltage is, what the battery thinks the voltage is, and its remaining capacity. So
was he pretty sure that it's 2000 baud and not some other rate? With your analyzer you got, you can hook it up and you can verify that to see, exactly what the baud rate is on that.
Right. He put it on his scope, and that's how he determined what what signals were going across and what the baud rate was, and then posted what the hex messages were. So I have not verified it, but he's talking to it with his with an Arduino now to log and do that communications.
And it could be with the modern UARTs on these processors, you can get maybe you can get any baud rate you want. You just have to go out and set the dividers and the prescalers and everything, and you can possibly get what you want instead of putting in the standard, the standard rates that everybody uses.
Yep.
You have that link handy to that thing? I was looking at that one day and I don't recall what it was. If you can come up with that link and post it in the chat, so
sure,
we can go look at this page.
I'll look at the whole posting that I made, and then we can so you can also see the guy who has torn apart the innards and created the schematic of what the circuit inside each battery pack looks like.
Is that a different guy or is that the same guy?
It's a different guy.
Oh.
One guy's working on the protocol. A different guy is working on the actual circuit.
Okay.
So I will, let's see, how can I find it? I've never been able to search very well in Reddit.
Yeah, it's not a very well, it's sort of like a unorganized attic.
Yeah.
I usually just would go to Google and put in say M18 drill battery Reddit, and then usually you can find stuff quicker that way. It'll just pop right up.
I will give that a try.
Assume he was calling it an M18 battery, or that's why you can put Milwaukee battery or something like that. So you can do different things there.
By the by, on the Fritzing thing, if you wanted to move past just documentation or a visual to creating a board, you can do that with Fritzing as well. One of the benefits behind that is people will share their models. I don't know if it's the exact board you have, but I just Googled it, and Adafruit seems to have published an Itsy-Bitsy board in the Fritzing format.
Okay.
I put a link out there for that too, but again, it's just added to the list of things to learn.
Oh yeah. Let's see. There you go. What else? That's it. That's my update.
Just a couple of things for my side. Oh, come on back here. I mean, Jeff, you had shown some interest in wanting to look at the TF for mine, so I posted that out there, or sent you a couple of photos of that, or screen clips actually. So the GPS, the IMU, I think that's the IMU, the wheels, obviously base link, and then I didn't know exactly which view would be most useful, but there's where base footprint was. In that, I've forgotten what that was. Maybe that was ODOM 00. I don't remember whether that was it or not. But anyway,
That's probably both map and ODOM, because ODOM's on top of map. But my thought was, if you know what those markers are doing and you have some reference saying what direction you think you're pointing, that was the intention of that. So, you know, on mine, if I pull up Gazebo, it's at some weird angle to start with. So if I rotate it around so the red line points to the right, then that says that red is now east, and then the green line points up, so that says that is north. So see right there, see, you can see the red lines going off to the right, so it thinks that is your X line, and by definition they say that that should be pointing east. And I don't see the green line. It's probably going off to the top there along that right next to the blue line is probably where the green line is. So if you go in RVIZ, because you can rotate these any direction you want. Now, what I was thinking was you're gonna show a screen that had your map of your house, and then on that, look at the marker, and then in that point, the red one should be pointed to the right, because I assume your map is, you know, you got it off Google Maps, so it should be it should be aligned north-south already. So, and this TF is what ties everything together. So that's, you know, it just, you said you couldn't remember how to turn it on. Well, you know, it should just be on your menu on the left. So at any point you just click on this thing, say, show me that, so you can see what that stuff looks like.
yeah, I've been using a plain map without any obstacles, so I have to load that up on the, you know, the home map. But yeah, there's that green line that you were talking about.
Yeah. So at this point, see it's not oriented north, south, east, west. It's just some arbitrary, about a 45-degree angle. Well, actually, it's like a 135-degree angle off from where it should be. So when I start up Gazebo, I just grab it and rotate it so the red line's pointed to the right and the green line's pointed up, and then I know on that one what it's doing. And then when you pull up RVIZ, you know, if you do the same thing on RVIZ, whether you have, you know, a visible map or you just have a blank field, you can still rotate that around so that way you know what direction you're driving at that point. And when this whole thing started, I couldn't remember how, you know, on your either RVIZ or Gazebo, what direction is north. And after a bunch of digging, that's what I came up with, that, you know, if that red line is pointed east on both of them and your green line is pointed up, then that's the correct orientation. That, you know, up and down is north and south, and then left and right is east and west.
I have to spend some time on that when I get it loaded up. I'm not on my machine with the Gazebo at the moment, but definitely something to check.
Just one other point I noticed that when I was looking at it, you're like the picture in the lower left right there. Can you make that one bigger? I noticed for some reason the GPS seems to be off to the right. And I was thinking that when I created this, the red thing, which is the IMU, I thought it was off. It was supposed to be off to the right and towards the front. But so I don't know why those don't look like they're in the right spot, because I think they should be oriented from base link. So it should say, you know, your Y value should be 0, which should put that, you know, directly down the center. That should put the GPS down the center line. So that's just something I noticed. I didn't track down. I think when I pull mine up, I've got the front GPS and the back GPS. I think they're right down the center line. But since we changed the scale and made yours bigger, I don't know if something got changed there or what happened. So that's just something I noticed.
I mean, I know exactly what happened. Those represent where it is physically.
Oh, so you purposely move those to match your vehicle. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'll be able to load this in a Windows. If Excel will fire up with an ODS screen, or an ODS file, will it?
It's looking
I
like
guess it will.
Word. Oh,
So this is not the one that I wanted. Let's see. Vehicle dimension helper. So my GPS is a little off from the center line, and that's and if I had a picture here handy, I could show you. There's a physical bolt that was on the there's a bolt in the way, so I had to offset it 4 inches to the right. And yeah, so that's why when it comes to, you know, the origin, there's a little bit of offset, there. Same with the IMU. It's not on the center line either. It's a little bit to the left. So if I've done my helper file here correctly, those are the right. I mean, visually, going back to this, visually, yeah, it's showing up visually the way more or less it is in the physical world. I haven't quite figured out this white box and what dimension I should use for that.
That's the chassis. It was just simply something handy to stick in there. So you can make that. You can make that anything you want. I think it's called the chassis or something like that. So if you want to make that wider and longer, you could. And the blue thing, that's that LiDAR, the SICK LMS LiDAR.
Right.
So
yeah.
if you keep that as another interesting point is, I don't know if that's sitting high enough that it's going to see your front tires or not. So you might have to deal with that.
I don't actually have a LiDAR, so probably should remove it. I don't know if that'll blow anything up.
I don't think it will, because if you have nothing that's listening, it just simply, it's got the fake LiDAR in your URDF file, and you could just comment out that section. And otherwise, it starts up and just publishes the scan message. So if you wanted to use that for something, it is there and it's available. And even if it's running, it's not going to hurt anything.
I mean, someday I know that you have the big expensive one. I think you can get them for about $150 now, just to see what it's like. But that's on the to-do list. So I got on that because you were saying they looked offset, and if this is all working right, I've correctly linked it back to BaseLink. The other thing I just wanted to mention, and not that you need to look at it, but I've been working on getting a mission run, and so this is a mission that is represented in these waypoints, but the program to use those waypoints, let's see, wants it in a statement that looks like this, with the X and Y, Z, and then the quaternion. So the challenge for me has been trying to figure out how to build these target poses to get it to run, and to get it run hopefully well. And by well, I mean not a whole bunch of bucking up and so if you watch this, I can increase the speed. I think it's doing an okay job of running that path. But the one issue at the moment is it slows down every time it's coming up to a waypoint, and my suspicion is that's by some sort of design. And I haven't come across a configuration setting anywhere that will let me adjust that, which is what I would prefer to do, because I would rather it, make a smooth, continuous speed operation. So at the moment, getting this to run efficiently, and by my definition of efficiently is, a consistent speed. That's what I'm wondering, how people have solved that with Tab Planner. So in the thought process for thinking through that, I came across these guys who are doing autonomous racing, and they've gone I'm gonna say off the reservation a little bit, and they've got their own steering algorithm based on the pure pursuit approach. And so I was going to spend some time looking through that and trying to figure out if that could be applied here. And basically pure pursuit is all about setting look ahead distance and what's the next goal closest to that or within that look ahead distance, and steering only to that, while separately controlling speed and not adjusting speed based on that. But Anyway, that's what's going on with me. The other thing I came across, I don't need to worry about it today or tomorrow, hopefully, as long as my laptop holds out. But this is AliExpress, and they've got these mini computers. This one, I thought the price was on there. It was like $200. Oh, there it is, 170. For what, in my estimation, a pretty darn powerful computer. And I mean, it would just be, other than the being outdoors and need to be ruggedized, it certainly is at a price and at a power that makes it look interesting for me. But again, as long as my laptop holds out, I'm in good shape.
Does it have a soft disk drive or a rotating disk drive?
I think it has a place to put a,
Okay, SSD. I see it right there.
yeah, you saw it before I did. I don't see it. Oh, right there.
Your cursor was right by it.
Yeah, they have, it's the M2 deal, right? The little card-based deal. So anyway, that oh, here's one for 114. I wasn't looking very hard, but that's what's going on. And
Does that list the power that it uses? Is it 12 volts or the 19.1 or something else? So it's just a matter of deciding how you're going to power the thing, how you're going to get it, how you can supply it with what it wants.
DC, what amount of DC? I just assumed whatever it was, we could jury rig something together there.
That's a true
What
statement.
voltage? I just saw the question.
Yeah, and then the screen sort of stopped.
I'll just do a search for voltage.
Which voltage? There.
That's not opening up. Volt. It's always cute.
Things like HP and Dell always use the 19.1 volts. And I was thinking some of the newer stuff like this may run on 12 volts. But yeah, you're right. You can probably come up with something to convert whatever you have down or up to whatever voltage this wants.
I only get 2 hits on volt, and it's this, very useful and elaborate question and answer.
And if they're showing you pictures of the top, it might show the adapter. There's various user pictures.
Well, it was a pin adapter.
Yeah, it was just a barrel deal.
Well, I mean, do they show the physics? Does it come with the adapter? And if so, it might tell you what the adapter is. They might show you a picture of the adapter, might say on it that it's what the voltage is. I think they'd either have to give you an adapter with it, or they're gonna have to tell you what the power is. So
Yeah. Hey, it is AliExpress, so
that's just something else to look at when you're looking at this kind of stuff.
so that's where I'm at. Jeff, any experience on this? Getting the
What-
speed stay the same in Ted Planner?
I was going to ask, see that where it says kind of more options? It might say purchasing the power supply. Oh, never mind. I was shipping only.
And sometimes you just scroll down and say what's included in the package, and they might tell you there if it's comes with the power adapter.
Crickets on include. Yeah. Well, it's not a today thing anyway, so I just thought you guys might be interested in seeing the price of a PC in a box. Jeff, any thoughts on the speed thing and running a mission?
Well, let me back up and give some other comments here. When you were displaying that, you said you made a screen dump of that so you can see it driving around. If you turn on your ODOM marker, it puts little arrows that it drives around, then leaves them behind, so you can get. It'll give you a better indication of where the thing has driven. So that's just something that to keep in mind. You can do that. And the other thing was on Pure Pursuit. I think the first thing that Matt did, he was running Pure Pursuit, and maybe I think he's feeding in points to do like Dubins, and that's what ended up on Juan's lawn tractor. So if you go back to the original code for that stuff Juan is running, you might have something there that would load and run Pure Pursuit, and I think he's feeding in some kind of a path to that. So that, and then they would go back to ROS Agriculture. You can see videos of it driving around like that. I don't know how you would find that. Possibly just go to ROS Agriculture Index and say search for Pure Pursuit, or maybe search for Juan. There's gonna be a bunch of entries, but at some point there was actual videos of that driving around, and it would make a nice straight line till it gets to the end, and it would show the Dubins-curve, and then it would cut the curve. It would turn early, and so that would need some work on it. But anyway, that's something you could look at. That's what somebody has already done, and was meant to work with. I think he had it running in the stage simulator, and it was actually physically running on Juan's lawn tractor. And I think when Matt took his lawn tractor to was that that competition they have in Indiana, whatever that's called.
I forget the name, but I remember what you're talking about.
I think at that point that's what he was running on it there also, but I think most of that code had disappeared. So, but I think Juan's stuff might still be around. He might have the original stuff that was running the that Pure Pursuit follower.
Yeah, I'll look to see if I can find anything out there.
I think under our stuff, under the with saving workspaces, Juan has put out at least one workspace there. It could be that's what he had at the time. So it may be in that. I don't recall.
Definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, that one right there, it says pure launch. That probably will at least point to the packages he's running. So maybe you can, then from that you can find the I didn't see bit much in there.
Yeah,
That's a full file.
it's absolutely blank. That's too bad.
Let's see, there's various things that say Juan Arduino, Eduardo Riva. So that is Juan stuff there. Maybe go down one more where it says Pure Pursuit. I don't know if that's a directory or. This says some kind of configuration, I think is what this one was.
You said go down and what?
Well, right where you were, one line down from that, it just says Pure Pursuit, and that might be a directory. That's just their config. That's a header file. So anyway,
I thought I saw the lawn tractor Pure Pursuit launch file in that last folder or two folders before.
That might be the one he looked at that had nothing in it. Or no,
no, he had looked at Pure.
Yeah,
he had looked at Pure Pursuit, and that's the one I thought I saw. Ah, an equally informative file. Okay, never mind.
but I think if you go out under the saved workspaces, he might be able to find all the stuff there. So that's just something you can dig into when you get around to it. Now the question about the thing pausing at a waypoint, this went by again back in the ROS agriculture days when everybody kept switching different planners and or whatever, you know, that was because, you know, people started to move base. They said, well, we need to force in a path to it. So they switched to move base flex. And once it got to that, then they put something on top of that to avoid this thing about stopping at a waypoint. Now, the reason it's doing that is because just going from point A to point B, by definition, is going to drive until it gets close to the waypoint. It's going to slow down and stop. So one way to get around that, by looking at that code that you had, it said something about that I don't remember Python, whatever you're running right now. It says something about execute the path or the pose or something, and it says wait for it to finish. In the wait for it to finish concept, there was a block up above that was like a function or something doing it, I thought. Get that. Yeah, the wait for a result. So if you go into that wait for a result, what you can do is you can say, instead of saying wait for it to say that it's done, you know, because once it gets to the point, it'll say, okay, goal reached. But you can be watching to say, am I within, say, 1 meter of the waypoint? And what it is, just fire off the next waypoint and don't let it come to a stop. That's one way to get around that. And I don't know the way the stuff's written, if it'll allow you to do that or not. But there was something else, again, back in the ROS agriculture days when people were playing with this. It's probably documented on what people were doing there. And then at one point, then Vinny went on and added the what's that called, behavior trees instead of the standard state machine that was in it. And that may have been to solve that problem. I don't recall that. I didn't ever try to run that stuff. Well, I did try to run it, and that's where everybody realized that you give it a path to follow, and when it's done, it's just locked up, and you had to reset the thing to get it to do the next one. So there needs to be like 1 or 2 more lines in that behavior tree that says once you get to the end of the path, it resets it to wait for another path to come in. But I was thinking that was to solve that problem. You know, once you put that behavior tree in, you could pass it a list of points. It would actually follow along the path and not stop at the waypoints and before it starts the next one.
Yeah, this looks like this is send goal and wait for goal. That's binary code at the moment, so I need to go find what that looks like.
So there's nothing in here called wait for a result?
No, that is
That's just something in the move base flex thing.
Yeah, it's probably in this action lib.
And you could, if you can find what that action lib is, find the source code for that. It probably is going to say, you know, wait until you get the goal achieved message. It'll either say goal achieved or it gave up. And there you could either copy that and modify it or create your own that simply says, you know, wait until we're within this distance, you know, this radial distance of the destination. And once you are, then just immediately, you know, fire off the next path, and hopefully that will overwrite just the regular move base. You know, if you go to RVIZ and say, you know, click on define a 2D navigation goal, and it starts driving. At any point, you can issue another one of those, and it will just turn from where it's at and head towards the new one.
Right.
So that's a way you can do it, just running move base. And I remember we went through all these different things, and somebody says, "Oh, I got a bright idea. Let's switch from move base to move base flex." They said, "Well, let's add this on top of it," and they kept adding things to it. I'm not sure anything ever worked completely right, but it just seems like, you know, that they thought, hey, this might do it, so everybody switched to something new. And I don't remember along the line, how well any of it worked, or if they got it completely running or not.
Yeah, I'll go back and look at what's out there from Juan to see if I can piece anything together.
And there was something else
And
about, depending what you were running, you had to define a path one way or another way. And I can't remember what the issue on that was either. That again might be back to whatever it was Jenny was doing with the behavior trees. Maybe had to have a different format or something. So anyway, that again, it may or may not be documented on the video meetings we did. It could be as back on the Slack stuff, which is all gone now. There is some stuff on Slack. If you can, somewhere buried on Google Drive, the stuff that we tried to save and recover, but there's enough stuff missing there. It may not be worth digging through there. I don't know.
okay, thanks for that feedback.
So the next thing was, which has nothing to do with what you're doing right now, but I noticed when I was running my, when I was trying to determine, was the Gazebo simulator going to be good enough to actually test out steering and all this kind of stuff. And I was looking at the output messages, and I started looking at the GPS message, and I've got the node that I wrote that'll take the GPS. I think under Gazebo it's called GPS/fix underbar velocity, to give you that velocity vector the thing puts out. And I wrote a node that would take that and extract out the forward velocity and the heading out of that. And then once you have the heading, then you could convert that into rotational velocity if you want to. But I was noticing the messages coming out seem to be really, really, really nasty looking messages. So let me go over here and say, post that. So if you go into your URDF file where it's defining the GPS, and it's got a block that said, here's the parameters for the GPS, and they define drift. So what they're trying to do is simulate a real, quote real GPS, as the ROS people say. And the ROS people say, oh, well, GPS is noisy and it's inaccurate. But then, because the people that are saying that don't use RTK GPS. So to get around it, I just simply went in and changed the values. Let's see, how can I should have something on the screen to do this. If I go here and go here, come on. Okay, let me try this. Share screen. Well, I'll just do this. So here it is in the chat, and basically it said there's this block of code in the URDF file, and it says the drift is set to 0.1. I assume that means it can have a random number up to 0.1 meters, over time. And I don't know if that's, it will actually slowly drift over time, or if it's actually jumping around by that much. And then the Gaussian noise is basically saying they're just introducing random noise into it. So for velocity drift, it says all zeros, so that's not doing anything. But apparently drift is controlled by that top one that says drift 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, and then Gaussian noise of 0.04. That is saying, just randomly your points coming out, they're purposely making it jump around to simulate a quote real GPS. And then so I decided I wanted to see what it's doing, so I come down here and changed it to I just put zeros in for everything, and then it gives me a fairly decent number out. It basically, the numbers there will follow whatever, like the IMU and the odometry stuff's putting out. So that's something when you start playing with GPS on these things, and since you're running RTK GPS, it might be to your advantage to do that. Let's see, how do I?
It would be to my advantage to make them zero like you have.
Yeah. If you want to be able to see a decent output, you could play around with those numbers and get them closer to what your RTK is putting out. But the bigger number you put in, the crappier the thing becomes. So that's the whole point of that. Because they say, oh, we don't want to simulate an ideal vehicle. So they say, on all these sensors you can put in, like on the IMU and all that stuff, you can say, how introduce error noise into it, just to make it more like the real world.
Whereabouts, I'm looking back through
So if you go to your URDF file and just search for GPS, there'll be a block that says, there's two sections, one that says create the physical device and maybe tell it where it's at on the vehicle. Then right below that is, it's in that block of stuff that says the stuff that I'm showing right here. They're just defining the parameters for that GPS that's put in there.
Just trying to find what you posted in Slack, and I couldn't seem to get my hands on that.
It's in random.
quick.
Let's see, the date is oh, I'm looking at the wrong screen again. So let's see, it says Tuesday, February 7th is where that's posted. Under oh, oh, it's not in random, it's under your I was talking directly to you. So
Oh, that's why I couldn't find it.
so I've got that posted in the chat, or the chat here. So that'll basically the same stuff shows up. And I'm just saying in there, you might want to look at that. It gives you a better output, because I was trying to extract the velocity and the heading out of that. And I also have the thing that says, you know, if the velocity is below 0.1 meters per second, don't update it. But if it is greater than 0.1, then go ahead and update it and consider that a real one. And I had so much noise on it, it would never fix that, because the velocity noise was high enough. It kept doing stupid things to me. So just to quickly get around that, I just set my GPS to give me ideal coordinates and ideal velocities out of it. So again, if you try to use any of the GPS coming out of that for anything you're trying to do, that might be to your advantage to do that.
Well, in the simulation mode, is it using GPS or
Well,
is it creating that ODOM some other way?
depends what you mean by simulation mode. The ODOM that's being created, actually, I just went in and I found a tutorial and said, do this. So I just went into Gazebo and says, show me your current position. And it pulls up a message saying where you are and what direction you're going and your speeds and all that stuff. So it's not actually using the GPS stuff. Now, what we could do is delete that ODOM pi that I wrote that's doing what I just said. And we could just take the GPS and run it through the other normal programs you'd run on your vehicle. So if we use that GPS ODOM.py that you're using on your vehicle, you know, you could use that, feed the actual latitude and longitude into that. So you got a simulated latitude and longitude. You could feed it into there, let it generate the output ODOM. But keep in mind that program needs fixed also, because it's putting velocities. It's just generating velocities of 0 coming out of that thing. So that, like the same problem we had trying to fix the, you know, when it would go different speeds in different directions. And then I said, okay, I'll just set all those to 0, like Matt was doing in his thing. And that's where it quit being variable, but it always ran at 0.26 meters per second, no matter what I did. So then if you go look on either Move Base or Move Base Flex or Teb Planner, under it says subscribes to ODOM, it says it uses this to get the velocity of the vehicle. And so apparently that's the only thing it's using out of that ODOM message is the velocity. And since Matt's stuff was setting it to 0, that I assume you're gonna have the same problem there. So we'd have to go through there and figure out how to get the velocity and put it into the ODOM message.
I'm going to stick with your, I think you got it from the construct, if I'm remembering right.
Yeah, that's what I did. And it
I
turns
think-
out if you go to ROS 2, was it ROS 2 or was it the new Gazebo? For some reason, it doesn't work the same anymore. So this won't work. This won't work under ROS 2, but for what I was doing, it works for what we're trying to do now. And I don't remember how the stage simulator was set up. If somehow it was getting a position out of that, I haven't looked at that hard enough to see how it was doing that.
I'm sticking with the Gazebo. Now that we've got something that seemingly works perfectly well.
And other things I
Perfectly.
noticed, yeah, perfectly for the moment. So other things I noticed when I was trying to figure out, was it going to be usable to give me, to let me do steering experiments and all this kind of stuff. I was noticing that if you put up the IMU message, which is /IMU/data, I think is what it's called. Under there, it has a section that, what was it? I think it was the velocity section. It's got a rotational velocity field in there. And then there's something else. Now I forgot what it, maybe the position coming out. So if you go look at the ODOM message that's being created, it's got that orientation, and under orientation, it's got the quaternion giving you your heading. And if you go look at the IMU, that's exactly the same inside of there. So basically, again, both of them are taking some internal data from Gazebo and simply publishing that to give you simulated results. But anyway, it looks like, back when we were talking about the directions are wrong, like this latest thing you came up, he said the directions appear to be wrong. And I went through and verified that on Gazebo, no, they seem to be, once I got my base plane oriented, so my red line points to the right, and ran all these experiments, I thought, no, that looks like it's working right. Well, it turns out the IMU one also seems to follow that. So it looks like both of those are putting out the ENU format. So the odometry and the IMU message, since they're both tracking each other, they both seem to be in the correct ENU format to make that work. Whereas you go back to GPS and it's still in the NED format, putting out the latitude and longitude is putting that way. And when it puts out that velocity message, it technically is putting out velocity north and velocity east. But then the thing I wrote where I just simply said, take the length of that vector and, the square root of x squared plus y squared, that gives me the velocity in whatever direction you're going. And then I can also pull the heading out of that if I choose to do so. Although I think the latest thing I came up with didn't seem to have the correct numbers coming out for the heading. So that's something else I'd have to play with on that. So that's just some random things that came up that yes, the IMU data coming out looks, what the parts of it I looked at seem to be reasonable. I didn't try to evaluate the acceleration or it looks like the rotational velocity, at least the yaw one, seems to match whatever comes out of the other things telling you rotational velocity. So that's just something to note that I did look at that, and I think that's maybe doing the right thing. So that's all the comments I had on what other people are talking about. And I think I'll go look at that thing that Terry talked about with the drill batteries and see what the guy's doing there, and just to keep up on that, because that's the first time I'd seen anybody doing anything with the protocol in and out of that. So it'll be interesting to see.
So far, at least what he's posted so far is just the charger to the battery. He hasn't he says that's his next step. And I also suggested that he try it with what the communications is with the same battery, but after it's been used for a while, so you can see if the messages are different, and then try with another battery that has the full, so what part of it might be the battery identifier.
Yeah. And then also, I assume he's got some number of messages that might be 5 or 10 messages it's doing right now. And then when you put it on the drill, you might be getting additional messages or different messages, so that, all those kind of things will give you a clue as to what it's trying to do.
Right.
Did he comment on the voltages on that? He said it's serial data. Did he mention, is it 5-volt serial data or 3.3 volt or? And if I go look at it, I'll probably find that out. If he showed
I don't recall
plots, if he showed it on a scope, you might be able to tell from that what it is, or you can just measure it yourself.
Well, I don't have a scope that's working, so.
You could probably just put a voltmeter on those two lines and say, do they? If it's like just a standard UART, it's probably going to idle at the high voltage, so it's either going to be 3.3 or 5 if it's going to be a standard voltage. But You know, just little things like that. Just check it in an idle condition and see what it's doing. Or they might both be 0 if it's not hooked up to anything. I don't know.
The guy who did the circuit reverse engineering, we can probably find out from the microprocessor what its voltage is for the transmit and receive.
I was thinking I looked at his schematics and they seem to be kind of some random stuff. I didn't know if he had it fully decoded yet or not. So maybe he does. I just wasn't looking hard enough. I tried going out to the patents for the Milwaukee drills, and you know, like any patent, they don't want to tell you how it actually works or give you valid
Right.
information. So, you know, I couldn't even find one that was specifically for this type of battery. And it looks like older batteries had like a single line coming off the microcontroller, and I don't know what kind of communication they're running on that either. So, but that's just more things. Yeah, it's just up to people to dig into it and figure it out, I guess.
Right.
And I guess that's all the comments I had of what we've been talking about. So, and although Al had mentioned that, well, some guy had gone completely off the range or whatever that phrase was.
Off the reservation.
Off the reservation. Well, keep in mind, you can do anything you want in ROS. You don't have to use the navigation stack to do this stuff. And that's the kind of stuff that Kyler is doing. He just said, well, I need my tractor to go straight and I want to specify a path. And he didn't use the navigation stack at all. He just simply wrote his own pure pursuit follower and then created some way to generate the points he wanted to go to. And so it really doesn't matter. One of the big advantages that the move base will give you, the standard navigation stack, is the fact it's looking for obstacles and tries to drive around the obstacles. But if you just have a big open field and you don't care what's out there, you can throw out, 90% of what's there. So you basically just say, like Al is doing, he's generating points externally for his path. And if you just had a path follower, so you just pass those into that and it drives. That's really all you need there. But you eventually need some kind of obstacle detection in case, somebody walks out in front of you, or there's a deer standing in front of you, or there's a post or a tree is falling down. So you need something to see that and come to a stop at that point. But just to get it to drive around, I was also looking. I went out and searched for pure pursuit. No, I looked for Dubins global planner for ROS, and everybody kept saying Dubins, and I think it's called RRT. And I thought, what's this RRT? And it's something about they're tying the Dubins planner in with the obstacle avoidance stuff. So when you go to make your plan, it will, if say you're doing it inside of a building, you got doorways and hallways and stuff, it'll use Dubins to make the curves. So it'll limit how sharp the thing will curve, but then still it does a search pattern that, works its way around through the building. And if I had that handy here, it's on my computer upstairs, but there was a page that says this is the Dubins global planner with RRT, and he had it very well documented at the bottom. He had like these GIFs, animated GIFs. At first he says just Dubins only, and you could see it was doing what looks like a standard Dubins-curve, but it's still smart enough to pick a path that would go through his doorway. And then the next one down, it shows it running and it's trying to do, where the thing is fanning out as it drives. So it'll come like this, and then it's showing you all these little paths, what direction it could go. And then he had like 4 different examples there. And I didn't look at his code to see if, there's just a parameter that says use one or the other. So that was something I ran across that might be something you could just drop in and use that as the global planner, and then pass that down to either a TEB planner, or if you can come up with a pure pursuit follower, you could pass it to that. So that's just something that I was looking for, something you could just drop in that where people have thought about all this stuff. And it turns out that everybody seems to be going back to the fact they want to be able to plan around objects, based on your global map, is what the main difference is there.
Yeah, I was gonna say that the tree falling thing is definitely a real life example of an obstacle you can hit if you don't pay attention to, if you don't use that as input. Um, especially when you're on the outside of the field, making the first or second run cutting hay. Yeah, so I would like to have obstacle avoidance and use it as close to native, ROS as possible. So we'll see if we can work through this speed thing.
But the other problem is your planner, if it sees something in front of it, it's going to try to drive around it. So you have to decide, do you want it to do that, or do you want it to just come to a stop? And you can probably go into the recovery behaviors and tell it what to do there. And especially if you go to that stuff Vinny was doing with the behavior trees, you can actually say, if you see an obstacle, stop, or tell it whatever you want it to do at that point. So you've got the flexibility to make it do what you want if you can figure out how that stuff works. Another example is if somebody drives out with their pickup, they're fascinated by your vehicle driving on its own, so they drive out and stop and then get out to walk around and look around. Now you got somebody walking around in the field, yet you don't want to run over. And if their pickup is sitting there, you don't want to hit that either. So all kinds of funny little things come up that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, what
Yeah,
I found on IEEE seems to be behind a paywall, so I haven't found I don't know if this is open source or not. This Dubins-RRT thing.
It's on my other computer. I'll have to go track it down. I'll post that. I can stick it on the chat, and then I'll put it on the on Slack also. But it seemed like they've got to figure out. I think it was ROS based, so I think it was just a plug-in. You just replace your normal global planner with this one, the same way you do with Tab Planner. So you just be a line somewhere that says global planner to use, and then it's whatever this Dubins-RRT, whatever they called it, and that's probably what it's going to take to get it to work. And then there'll be a bunch of parameters, probably saying which search algorithms do you want to use, and you might have some other thing. Just like the Tab Planner has its own parameters, I'm sure this global planner will have its own parameters. You have to load those in also. So anyway, that would probably be worth looking at. And again, whether you stick with the Tab Planner or switch over to Pure Pursuit, to do the actual moving of the vehicle, again, those should be interchangeable. And so it should work. It should work either way. So that'll be interesting to find out what people come up with. So it's telling me something changed. Did somebody put something in chat? Let's see.
I just put a couple of links to the Dubins-RRT thing that I.
Oh, okay.
You see if those are different than the ones you found.
So I think it was on somebody's GitHub, and it did say something about Dubins and RRT. But as you scroll down to the description at the bottom, it had some real nice pictures. They were actually showing you what the thing is doing as it drives around, trying to do its planning. So I'll find that and post that.
Cool, thank you.
And that's all I can think of right now.
I'm done.
Any final words, Al?
See you in 2 weeks.
Have fun on the Royal Clipper. Ahoy, matey. Or whatever they say.